Welcome to the June 26, 2024 City of Broussard Council meeting. Please silence your cell phones, and if anyone from the audience would like to make a comment on an item listed on the agenda, please fill out a blue card located in the back of the room and turn it into our city clerk. Each speaker will be given a maximum of 3 minutes. Please rise for the pledge. Pastor Moak is here from First Baptist Church of Broussard to lead us in a prayer. Welcome, Pastor.
Let's pray together. Our Heavenly Father, we gather here on this day to seek your wisdom, your guidance, your direction for this city and for the affairs, the business, and finances. Lord, we know that you want us to run things well and in order. That's our desire. I pray for each council member, each person on the committee, each person in the city, that we will do our best to use the funds wisely and to allocate them for the city's best interest as well as for your glory. We ask your guidance and direction in Jesus' name. Amen.
We now open our budget hearing. Item 2.1 is the 2023-24 amended budget, and item 2.2 is the 24-25 proposed budget. Our CPA, Mr. Burton Colder, is here tonight to lead us in this discussion. Welcome, Burton.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, members of the council. As the mayor indicated, we're here tonight to go over and talk about the amended budget, the final amended budget for this current fiscal year, which ends on Sunday, the 30th. And then we're talking about the budget for next fiscal year, and so on. The budget for this current year, this amended budget, the administration, and with our assistance, used your 9-month actual numbers and then forecasted based upon things that they know and based upon talking to each department head and forecasted through the end of the year, which ends Sunday. So this is what we're going to ask you. It's listed as estimated in the column estimated, but it's your final amended budget. You may have amended it throughout the year. This is going to put them all together. We're going to ask you to adopt an ordinance when you go into your regular session. And then, of course, the budget for next year ending June 30th of 25 is the next column. It's clearly indicated as the budget here. So I'm going to hit the high spots. We've already had I think 3 meetings on this, 2 with the finance committee and 1 with the administration. So, and it's been tweaked. We've met with all the department heads and went through it. So, this is what we have. I think you've had it for a little bit, and we're going to hit the high spots tonight. So if you would, let's look at the budget message, which is on page 1. The page numbers are up in the upper right-hand corner. And I'm not going to read the first paragraph because it's just talking about that the budget is in accordance with the certain statutes as required. But under governmental funds, we'll start with that. It says expenditures have been increased or decreased over and under the previous year on a line item basis for each revenue source and expenditure functions. Salaries for most employees, excluding police and fire, have been adjusted for a 5% merit raise to be allocated to employees at the discretion of each department head. Police and fire salaries have been increased in accordance with the police and fire department pay plans. Salaries for the mayor and the chief of police have also been increased by 7%. The total budget amount for merit raises and the pay scale increase that's included in the budget for 2025 fiscal year end is $677,000. Now, this is spread out in each department. You'll see it as a line item in each department if you look at it for the raises or for the pay plan increase, which is for the increases there. The capital outlay, your capital budget for next year, ending June of 25, is it includes capital outlay requests of numerous funds listed on pages 4 and 5 of the budget document, totaling $21,742,000. And we have a laundry list of items, which we'll go through. There's 61 items on these pages. So we're going to look at that in just a minute and maybe scan those and go through the bigger items. It also gives you the funding of how it's going to be funded, whether it be proportioned with grant monies or 100% with grant monies, or 100% with city monies. Water and sewer rates will be increased by 5% and 10% respectively for the year ending June of '25, effective 7/1/24 and again on 1/1/25. Now, you have historically done this over the past, I think, 2 to 3 years for sure, that you do it in 6-month intervals where you go up on the rates in order to fulfill what we have been recommending to you, that you need to get your rates up to match basically the expenditures that are being incurred. And garbage rates will be raised by the CPI index, which is again consistent with previous years, at the time that the city incurs the CPI increase by the garbage collection service provider. Revenues, residential rates were budgeted with the rates in effect as indicated on the chart below. Utility expenses have been increased or decreased over or under the prior year on a line item basis. You can see the rates that would be effective on July the 1st. So next Monday, these rates will go into effect. You can see what the water department rate is, $13.66 for the first 2,000 gallons and $4.76 per 1,000 gallons over the minimum of 2. Sewer department is $14.21 for the first 3,000 gallons, and then $6.40 per 1,000 over the 3,000 gallons. Garbage department, the rates per month right now, $26.63. Effective on 1/1/25, you can see what the rates are going to go to on the water and sewer departments. Okay, any questions on these couple of pages? If not, let's go ahead and look at the capital outlay of $21,742,000 that's included in the '25 budget. It begins on page 4. Page 4. And it's all broken out by the different funds that it's going to be incurred in. And on the right side, you can see how it's going to be paid. Like, for example, the first item, Veterans Monument, there's $50,000 allocated for that. It's in the general fund. It's a general government type of expenditure, and it's going to be funded with general fund revenues. And going on right down the line, the third item is a bigger item. It's the council chambers. $100,000 is what's estimated in the budget to revise these chambers, and I presume, Mayor, is going to be after the police department moves out of next door. And so you have various items. So items 1 through 5 in general government totaling $259,000. Then we go to public safety and the police department. What do we have there? Well, you have 2 police units, 81,000, plus the striping and the camera system and the laptops and the mobile radios, and that totals to $110,000. Then we also have some court software. We have a copy machine. We have the Dell laptop computers, and in the big item, number 10, police building renovations, which I think they're going to be starting on that shortly, and it should be completed towards the end of the year for $820,000 to retrofit that building that was purchased down Highway 90. So a total for the police department, which the bulk of it is, of course, this renovation, is $1,032,000. The next department is the fire department. The 2 big items in the fire department is item 13, the Station 3 living quarters, $410,000, and number 16, the training building for $240,000. A total for the fire department budgeted for next year for capital is $820,000. Streets and drainage within the general fund. Now, this is only general fund. You got a lot more streets and drainage, but this is all that's going to be paid by the general fund. You have some drainage improvements of $200,000, and you can see we have an excavator, a John Deere excavator for $121,000. A total for streets and drainage in the general fund of $559,000. Total general fund expenditures, $2,670,380. That's included in the budget for next year. Now, that's correct. We got 1 grant for the court software of $25,000. So most of this is being paid, as the mayor indicated, by the general fund revenues and the surplus that's been accumulated. And you're lucky to be able to do that. You're lucky to have that. Many general funds cannot pay for this kind of expenditure for capital. Capital Projects Fund, that begins with item number 23. There's some big items in here. And again, a lot of this is streets and drainage. For Bernard Road, Highway 182 to Highway 90, engineering and construction, $2,330,000 on the construction. You can see in the left column, the project cost is $4.3 million, but what's budgeted to hopefully complete this thing next year is $2,442,000. And all we're getting in state funding, it looks like, is about 11, right. 2,000,003, a full amount. Right, we're good. The South Bernard multi-purpose, multi-use path, 108,000 is item 24. 25, again, starting with Main Street improvements. The big item here is the construction, of course, 1,553,000, and as you can see, the column on the right side of that is the amount of funding. State funding is gonna pay 1,553,000 for the construction part of that particular project. And also the next one on phase 3, all the way to Albertsons Parkway is $1,320,000. Again, we have state funding on that. So a lot of this construction here is being funded from the grants from the state. Item 27, you can see it's in there for the J-turns on South Bernard, but there's nothing funded. We have the estimated cost, but that'll be funded hopefully next year. 3-lane of Highway 3-lane Highway 89, $4,627,000 for construction. Engineering budgeted at $238,000 for a total of $4,866,000, of which we're gonna get some funds, I think, from the state here again is, and also maybe some LCG match, but it's $3,549,000 of funding that's being paid for by another government. Number 30 is the Garber Road Bridge and Channel Maintenance, $1,192,000. $500,000 is we're getting from a grant to fund that. Now you have Fairfield at South North La Riviere intersection, West Fairfield Extension. Again, those are about $300,000 projects. They're funded. Going on down the line, you have some other items listed. The Marteau Water Well, estimated to cost about $5.3 million. We have budgeted $390,000. And again, we're gonna get some state capital outlay monies on that. Also on the Albertson Parkway well, the ground storage, $390,000. We should get some capital outlay funding, but you can see the total cost of those projects are quite a bit more. Mayor, is it anticipated that we're gonna do those in the next fiscal year and probably in 26? Just getting them off the ground. Next fiscal year, that's what I'm saying, in 26. And hopefully it'll move up. Right, okay. Again, Main Street, number 43 and 44, the Main Street Water Tower Rehab, $800,000, and the Highway 90 Water Tower Rehab, $800,000 is what's budgeted. So we should be able to do that this year, huh, Walter? Yep. Okay. Next big item is the Eola Lift Station in Force Main, $1,848,000, and you can see the funding source there, a 1992 sales tax fund. Also the Main Street parking lot and the Fezos Road extension for $300,000, again paid by the 1992 sales tax. Capital Projects Fund, total there, $18,598,000, of which we're getting $10,284,000 in funding, mainly from the state to fund these projects. So the city's putting up about $8 million. That's not bad when you can get 18 million and you're only spending 8. It's a good thing. Total for the governmental funds, this is the non-utility funds, of course, or that's paid for for non-utility, $21,269,000. And then we have $10,309,000 in total when you add that $25,000 we talked about earlier. Then the next thing is the utility fund projects and then the parks and recreation projects. Utility fund projects, various ones, master meter and water well generators and so on, a total of $272,000. We are gonna get some funding, some assistance on that water line extension number 49 for $58,000. And our Parks and Rec Fund, we have some zero-turn mowers and weed eater and radios, miscellaneous concrete, replace the backstop netting and picnic tables, as well as Ida Crochet Park improvements, a total of about $200,728. Again, we're getting no funding on that. It's gotta be funded by the Recreation Fund. Total capital outlay, which we talked about in the budget message, $21,742,485 is what we're estimating. And the city's gonna have to put up, you can see the net number, we're gonna get grants for about $10,300,000. The net cost of projects to be funded by the city is about $11 million. So you're funding about 50, let's say 55%, we get 45% from other sources, which is great. So we're getting $22 million of work, and we're paying $11.3 million. Any questions on this? And this is all built into the budget for next year. So when you adopt the ordinances, this will be funded. This will be adopted and funded for next fiscal year. Any questions on these particular line items? And again, we met with the department heads. Ray had met with them before, and they gave us the list for each one, and that's how they came up with this on the funding. Okay, I think the next thing we can go through is to maybe look at the overall budget. I mean, this thing is 48 pages long. It's quite lengthy. It's got it all detailed out by the different funds. Certainly if you have any specific questions, I can point you, we can look at it and try and discuss it and answer any questions. But I was gonna go to the consolidated budget, which is on page 3. And this is taking all of these items into consideration, and it's got, this is all the funds of the city, including the capital outlay that we've been talking about. It shows you the 23 actual numbers from the audit that was completed last year. Then we have the 24 estimated, which is gonna be your final amended budget for this current fiscal year. And then 25 is, of course, the budget for next year. So under revenues for taxes, mainly this is sales taxes. Last year, we actually collected $22,513,000. You see this year, now this includes franchise taxes as well. You have, of course, the city of Broussard has no property taxes. The only city in the parish that has no property tax. So this is all sales tax and franchise. You can see in 24, that number goes up to $22,869,000. Basically flat. It's about $300,000 increase over the prior year, about 1% or so. And next year it's $23,447,000. Kristen, what did we budget for the sales tax as far as the increase, percentage-wise? About 2? Yeah, that's what I thought. So 2% increase is what's factored in for the 25 budget for sales tax increase. I think that's definitely achievable, and you hopefully will exceed that. Licenses and permits, those numbers are pretty consistent. $1,009,000 last year actual, this year $2,062,000, next year $1,921,000. Under intergovernmental revenues coming mainly from the state, some from LCG, $5.8 million last year, $3,396,000 estimated for this current year, but as we talked about, $11,353,000 for the next fiscal year. And a lot of this is some capital monies. Charges for services, which is utility charges for services, $6,184,000 last year, $6,590,000 for the current year, and $7,176,000. Remember, we talked about the increases in the water and sewer on July the 1st and on January the 1st. Parks and recreation revenues are steady. $626,000 last year, estimated to be $629,000 for the current year, and budgeted to be $613,000 for next year. Fines and forfeits, $361,000 last year, estimated at $700,000 for the current year, and for the budget year, going up to $750,000 in revenues brought in from fines and forfeits. Under miscellaneous, which is a catch-all type category, a lot of this is interest income that you're receiving now, and of course, the monies are invested, a lot of which is invested at LAMP. It's currently earning approximately 5% interest at LAMP, and that you get, monies are liquid, you can take them in, you can put them in every day, and you can take some out the next day. So, there's no penalties, it's not like a CD. And this year, we're estimating $775,000 of revenues, next year, $550,000 of revenues. Total revenues for the city of Broussard, $38,200,000 last year, $37,023,000 for the current year, and for the budget year, because of all these grants that we're getting in state monies, going up to $45,811,000. Now, that's the revenues. Now, how is this money going to be spent? We have it by department. General government, $2,740,000 last year. This year, $3,084,000, and for the budget year, $3,331,000. Economic development, $329,000 last year, $382,000 for the current year, and for the budget year, $442,000. Public safety for the police department, first of all, this is only operations of the police. $4,261,000 last year, $4,972,000 this year, and budgeted $5,390,211 for the budget year. Under the fire department, last year was $1,952,000. This year, the appropriation, and this includes some capital for the fire department, $2,671,000, and next year also includes some capital, $3,343,000, because you make an appropriation to your volunteer, or to your fire department, and that includes some of the capital that you're expending. Street and drainage, $3,963,000 last year, $4,302,000 to operate the streets and drainage department, public works this year, and $4,782,000 for the budget year. Culture and recreation, minimal here, $17,000 versus $11,000 versus $8,900. Debt service on the debt, it says principal retirement. Last year was $1,333,000. This year's $1,123,000. Next year back to $1,233,000. Interest and issuance cost, mainly interest, $615,000 of interest on the bonds last year, going down to $573,000 for the current year, and going down further because you're paying off some of the debt to $562,000. On the capital outlay, we kind of talked about this. Last year, we spent $3.3 million. This year, estimated to be $12,284,000. This does include the facility down the road here of $5 million or so that you purchased, which I know y'all know this, but you made a hell of a deal on that situation. We compare this to some of our other clients that have built buildings or in the process of building, and this is it's a steal for you guys. So $12 million, and includes that $5 million. And next year, we already talked about it for the governmental funds, it's $16,566,000. And if you look down towards the bottom of the page under other financing sources, you see capital outlay, which is basically utility assets paid by governmental funds. You see the $4,903,000 down there for the budget year. If you add the 16.5 that I just talked about plus the 4.9 million, because that's transferred from another fund, the total capital is $21 million, which is what we just went over. I just wanted to point that out. Sports complex is the next thing. The operations of the sports complex, $2,813,000 last year, $2,990,000 for the current year, and $3,134,244 for the current year. That includes depreciation on all that facility that you have out there. Depreciation is $1 million every year, so a lot of that is depreciation. Utility fund expenses, $7,759,000 last year, $7,303,000 for the current year, and $7,593,000 for the budget year. Total operating expenses for the city of Broussard for last year was $29 million. This year is gonna be $39,699,000. That includes the capital outlay for the facility that we just talked about. Next year, as we talked about, total expenditures, $46,388,000. I would have to say this is probably the largest budget in the history of the city of Broussard. I mean, David, you could attest to that. Yep. But hey, we can fund it, and I'm gonna show you, once we get done with this, from an operational standpoint, you still have a surplus. You're using capital money, some of which you're getting elsewhere, some of which you have in your coffers. We're not borrowing any money to do any of this. Operating income or loss at this line item last year was $9,089,000. This year it's a deficit of $2,675,000, and next year it's a deficit of $576,000. To that, we're gonna subtract out the interest expense on the debt of the utility fund, basically, and you have a few other items in there, but it's basically the interest expense on the utility debt of $728,000. Last year, $771,000 for the current year, and $752,000 for the budget year. So the income or loss before capital and other financing sources, $8,361,000 last year was a surplus. This year it's a deficit of $3.4 million, and next year it's a deficiency of $1,328,000. Other financing sources, like when you lease vehicles, we have to show it as an expenditure when you purchase it, and then the lease proceeds that you get because you leased it, it's like a financing type thing. We show those items. So that's what you have here. $548 last year, $103 for the current year, and $160 for the budget year. Net change in fund balance, the net surplus, the third to last line item down there. Net change in fund balance, or your net position, that's just your surplus, including capital expenditures. Last year was a big surplus of $9 million. But again, we're gonna get to that in a minute. What's the operational side of that? This year, it looks like it's a deficit of $3,343,000, and for the budget year, it's a deficit of $1,168,000. So, any questions on some of the, I know this is the summary, but we'd be here all night if we went through the 50 pages that we're talking about. It's all detailed out, it all flows forward here. Any specific questions that anyone would have?
Comment, Bert. You went over like, 5% for our employees. What you didn't say is that this budget includes some pay scale increases for police and fire.
Right.
They both structured, I don't know if you were getting to that or not.
No, it was kind of covered in the budget message, Mayor.
Okay.
Because it did say that the increases, and it included for the police and fire, I think is the way it read. Police and fire salaries have been increased in accordance with the police and fire department pay plan.
That's
Yeah.
great. I
And
guess
that's how it's characterized.
I think it's worth putting on record that our police department salaries, starting salary from an officer is moving up from 40,000 to 45,000.
Correct.
Which continues to keep us competitive. And fire department, for part-time fire department, I think starting salary is $16 today, moving up to 18 roughly, and some change.
Yep.
So, I just wanted to remind everyone.
Remind everyone of that. Yep. Okay, any questions on what we just talked about? We don't have any questions. I've also done, and you've seen this before, especially when we do the audit. We take these, like you say, well, we got a deficit of 3.3 million. But I'd like for you to hand it out if you don't mind. What I did is, what she's gonna hand out is, I'm showing what the operating surplus would be, or deficit. And it's a surplus every year, so I'm just gonna tell you. But she's gonna hand it out, we're gonna talk about it. I've got 5 years, the prior 5 years of audit numbers, which starts with 19, goes to 23. So you got 5 years of actual. Where you see the bar in that column, that's the estimated that we just talked about, and then the budget for 25, okay? So let's just look at that. For example, in 23, we just looked at it. If you look at it, it was a $9 million surplus at that bottom line. And then we're gonna take off any grants that we got. See how we subtracting the grants? That totaled out to $5,600,000. I'm gonna add back though the capital of $3,431,000, and we have it detailed out for you. Last year, we ended up actual with a surplus of 6.7 million. So that 9 million is really 6.7 operational. The other 2 or 3 million is coming from grant monies that we got, okay? The 24, let's look at the amended budget, which has a deficit. It starts with 3,343,000 as a deficiency. It's in brackets. I'm gonna go ahead and subtract out the grants that we got. We didn't have many grants this current year, 2,750,000. And then I'm gonna add back though, all the capital. And of course, the big item is in the general fund, that's 6.7 million. That includes the 5 million that we talked about on the buildings that we purchased, that facility. So last year, we have to add back 12.2 million. So basically, the surplus last year, or for the amended budget that we're talking about that ends on Sunday, is $6,190,000 from an operational standpoint. Okay, so you use a lot of your surplus monies, but you're still in healthy position. Now, let's look at 25, this budget that you're adopting. It's $1,168,000 as a deficiency. But I'm gonna add back, or I'm gonna subtract out, first of all the grant monies that we got. We got a ton of it, a total of $11,824,000. I'm gonna add back, though, the capital that we're doing. $16,566,000, and I pointed that out earlier. So $16,566,000, that leaves you with a surplus of $3,574,000. Okay? So it's still a surplus, even though we're doing a lot of capital. We are using some of our monies, but it is a surplus. And every one of the years, the actual years, the average for the last 5 years, I say last 5, it's really the actual numbers for 5 years of the audited numbers, was $3,630,000. If I add in the 2 years that we're talking about, the estimate for this year, which is the amended budget, and the budget for next year, your average of the last 7 years goes up to $3,988,000. So this city has operated for the last 7 years, if I take into consideration the budget, at a surplus of about $3.8 million over those 7-year period, which has always been a surplus from an operational standpoint. And that's why you're able to use and match a lot of these grants that you have, because of the surplus that has been built up and that you do have in the city. Now, Ray, I think we're gonna be having a meeting on the 10th, as I recall, with the bonding attorney, because we're gonna have to bond some projects going forward. So our initial meeting is on the 10th, I think, that we're meeting with the bonding attorney.
Well, it's not 100% confirmed yet. We've got a couple of available days. That's the one we're targeting. So it'll be us, our finance committee. If everyone can make that date, we're gonna do it.
Right. So we are planning on that. Okay, any questions on what we've gone over? We've gone over a lot of things, and there's a lot of stuff in this budget document, but it's all built into the document that we have, right? All these numbers. Any questions? Okay.
Just a reminder, Bert, no action can be taken in this meeting on a budget. It's simply a report.
Strictly have any discussions from the audience, any questions that they may have, or any questions from the council. That's what it is. It's strictly a hearing to talk about this budget. So that's why if there's any questions, even from the audience, you're certainly welcome to ask those questions.
Tina, do you have any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay, so we'll have to adjourn this, Mayor, and of course, at 6, we go into the meeting to adopt the budget if the council so desires.
Okay, final request for any questions from the council to Burton.